Why does the gap between the rich and the poor in America keep growing? And what does it mean for the future of our society? In this video, we're diving into the stark realities of wealth inequality in the United States, where a small percentage of the population controls most of the nation's wealth while millions struggle to get by. Income and wealth inequality in the US is higher than in most industrialized nations and rising, creating a national discussion. The 2008 global financial crisis delayed an unequal recovery, and COVID-19 pandemic economic shock intensified these trends and challenged governments. Failure to adapt to globalization and technological development, altering tax policy, lower worker bargaining power, and long-standing racial and gender discrimination are among the causes of growing inequality, according to economists. Inequality has worsened pandemics and intensified social tensions. Inequality weakens democracy and fosters authoritarianism. President Joe Biden proposed more social spending paid by greater taxes on the wealthy and companies to combat economic inequality, but critics believe it goes too far. How unequal is America? The Neutral Congressional Budget Office reports that income inequality in the U.S. has been rising for decades, with the wealthiest surpassing the rest of the population. Even among high earners, income gains have favored the top. CEO compensation rise illustrates this pattern. According to the progressive think tank Economic Policy Institute, a typical business CEO made 20 times more than a typical worker in 1965. By 2018, the ratio was 278 to 1. CEO pay rose over 900% between 1978 and 2018, while worker pay rose only 11.9%. Congressional Budget Office. Similar results apply to wealth or total net worth, not annual income. The top 10% of Americans had about 70% of U.S. wealth in 2021, up from 61% in 1989. Over that time, the next 40% share declined. In 2021, 2.5% of wealth belonged to the bottom 50%, 63 million families. Moreover, U.S. inequality exceeds that of other developed nations. This is shown by the constant American rise. The Gini coefficient, which ranges from 0 to 100, measures economic inequality in a country. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a collection of advanced economies, the U.S. had a Gini coefficient of 40 in 2019, the same as Bulgaria and Turkey, and much higher than Canada, France, and Germany. Recent economic shocks exacerbated these trends. The Great Recession from 2007 to 2009 lowered incomes, and in 2015, the median income was $70,200, the same as in 2000. By 2016, the wealthiest 10% had more wealth than in 2007, but the poorest 90% had less. COVID-19's economic crisis, including the greatest unemployment surge in history, will worsen inequality, experts believe. Massive government stimulus mitigated the impact of low-wage workers being laid off and less likely to be rehired. A stock and home price rise mostly benefited wealthier Americans who hold more of these assets. Price inflation offset pay gains as wages climb at the quickest rate in decades. Why is inequality important? Experts think inequality hinders economic growth and leads to political dysfunction. Because rich households spend less than poor ones, concentrated income and wealth lower economic demand. Reducing low-income household opportunities hurts the economy. When those at the bottom of the income distribution are at great risk of not living up to their potential, the economy pays a price not only with weaker demand today, but also with lower growth in the future, argues economist Joseph Stiglitz. Populist leaders have been elected worldwide in recent years, which some experts attribute to economic inequality-related unease. By funding political campaigns, wealthy people can increase their power over the government. Teacher or student? However, other experts argue inequality harms are exaggerated. According to libertarian Cato Institute analysts, poverty is more important than inequality as long as everyone is getting well. Even if it makes some rich, entrepreneurship improves society, they say. Between 1959 and 1969, the U.S. poverty rate dropped by more than 10%. We should want to live in a society with a reasonable degree of mobility, rather than one where people are born into relative economic positions they can never leave, conservative analyst Ramesh Ponnuru stated in 2015. How is U.S. economic mobility? Americans pride themselves on their ability to rise economically, but there are evidence that this is changing. Only 50% of 1980s Americans earn more than their parents, down from 90% in the 1940s. Harvard University economist Raj Shetty, who has extensively studied social mobility, discovered that it varies greatly across the U.S. Other prosperous cities have high mobility, like Denmark and Canada. How do race, ethnicity, and gender matter? Gender, race, and ethnicity are important factors in economic disparity. Black households' wealth has hardly increased since 1960. Whereas white households' median wealth has tripled. Black Americans are underrepresented in high-paying positions like corporate leadership and have double the unemployment rate of white Americans. This inequality has been made worse by systemic racism, which has its roots in discriminatory practices like redlining and slavery. Due to the 1930s redlining policy, which denied mortgages to Black Americans, there was wealth inequality and segregated housing. Discrimination still exists in spite of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Black Americans' access to higher occupations has been hampered by hiring discrimination, which is frequently carried out through restricted networks. Due to the fact that Black American Indian and Latinx populations were disproportionately affected by the virus and lost their jobs while performing necessary jobs like delivery and cashiering, COVID-19 brought these disparities to light. Though it has shrunk as women's educational attainment has increased, the gender wage gap still exists. Nonetheless, a contributing factor to wage inequality is the underrepresentation of women in high-paying sectors. A major contributing factor to income inequality is education, as advanced degrees are associated with much higher wages and net wealth. 8 times as much wealth is possessed by families with postgraduate degrees as by those without. Inequality has also been exacerbated by tax laws. The top income tax rate was over 90% in 1961, but is now only 37%, and corporation taxes have also decreased dramatically. What additional factors increase inequality? High earners earn more while low and medium-skilled earn less over time. Experts mention globalization, economic monopolization, and dwindling labor power. Average union member makes 25% more than non-union member, contributing to union decline. About 20% of 1983 workers were unionized. It fell to 6.2% in 2019. Black workers who unionized more suffered most. The rapid economic recovery from the pandemic has constricted the labor market, giving workers increased power and union influence. Trump's success galvanized trade policy, a chronic concern. Trump has long opposed U.S. trade treaties, claiming China exploits the U.S. to punish workers. Many economists question trade's role in manufacturing job losses, citing rising earnings in other sectors. Automation, not trade, is blamed for job losses by some. Foreign Affairs post-USD. Although trade is not the main source of job loss, Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer feels it cannot be denied that the outsourcing of jobs from high into low-wage places has devastated communities in the American Rust Belt and elsewhere. What policies address inequality? Recent proposals to minimize income and wealth inequality include promoting unionization, boosting the minimum wage, making the tax system more equitable, and taxing wealth alongside income, and increasing education access, especially early schooling and college. A more progressive tax policy that taxes higher incomes more may lessen income disparities. Some academics and politicians think giving the poor more money will lessen inequality and benefit society. Wealth taxes, which Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren endorsed in 2020, are gaining popularity among Democrats. The billionaire minimum income tax was Biden's first wealth tax as president in his March 2022 budget request. At least 20% of $100 million households' income would be taxed, including unrealized gains on investments that have appreciated but not been sold. Biden also favors hiking the estate tax on inherited wealth. Proponents say such a tax would dramatically reduce inequality, while opponents worry it would promote tax evasion and impede investment and entrepreneurship. To cut college expenses and increase access, Sanders and Warren proposed tuition-free public college and student loan forgiveness. Trump and other Republicans have supported more government spending for skills and trades education. To close the Black employment gap, Howard University's Spriggs suggests making all job ads public, using computer algorithms to match job seekers with opportunities, and encouraging Silicon Valley companies to recruit more Black students. Spriggs seeks better anti-discrimination enforcement. State FR's Edward Alden thinks the pandemic should compel Washington to retool the economy. Workers can manage shocks and boost the economy with better unemployment compensation, sick leave, and job retraining. The country needs long-term plans to protect most Americans from such crises, not short-term bailouts. If this video gave you something to think about, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We got more insightful content coming your way, breaking down the biggest issues shaping our world. Don't miss out.